Okay, we'll go ahead and call the meeting to order for the Parks and Recreation Advisory Commission for Monday, October 14th. We'll begin with roll call. Position 1, Carrie Stuckey, I am here. Position 2, Shane Carden.
Here.
Position 3, Kate Rose. Here. Position 4, Eric Dipzinski.
Here.
Position 5, Tom Jones.
Here.
Position 6, Stefania Huerta.
Here.
Position 7, Vicky Biggs.
Here.
Okay, and it looks like we are missing Councilmember Marshall today. Have we heard from him at all? Okay, he is absent at the moment. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move on to item 2, approval of the agenda. There was a request to add Flintstone Park configuration options to the agenda today. So if everyone's okay with that, we'll add that right on. And do we have a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the agenda with the addition of Flintstone Park.
A second?
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is approved. Now we'll move on to approval of minutes for our meeting from September 9th. Did anyone have any questions or comments on the minutes from that meeting? Okay,
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
I second.
okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that is approved. Next, we'll move on to public comment. We had one public comment emailed. Michaela's going to display that for us now. Okay, did everyone get a chance to read that through? Okay. All right, thank you for that, and I don't see anyone here to make public comment in person, so we'll go ahead and move on to our discussion items. Discussion item A is commission communications, and we have Maggie here.
Hi, good morning. Thank you for having me here today. A few weeks ago, we discussed a communication plan for the commission. Chair Stuckey and I have been meeting a few times to talk about some of the things that we're going to update and some of the new initiatives that we will be taking. First and foremost, we are going through the entire web page to update the information and update it based on all the parks and the information that we have for the community to put out there and to just be more informative. For example, Carrie is writing out descriptions of all of our parks in detail, and then we will be updating the photos that are online right now so that it's easier for our community to navigate when they are looking for parks for their children or to reserve. It'll just be a lot easier to navigate. So that is one thing that we're working on. Some other things, just to give you an update, I would like to place an ad in the Whidbey News-Times, just promoting the parks, promoting the commission, and talking about some of the updates that we have on the webpage. So I'll discuss that with Carrie moving forward. Also, we discussed utility bill marketing. So we do have an opportunity to include in our utility bills that go out to our community an inclusion, a flyer, whether it's promoting our parks, promoting the commission, whichever route we would like to go, we can start having those discussions. And then once we finish the updates on the website, I would like to create a brochure that we can take out to the community, have here in City Hall, also have this brochure out at other locations like the library, the chamber, some of the schools, and have that put out through Peach Jar, through some of the other school programs and platforms that they have, so that the community, just so the community knows some of the parks that we have out there and what they can do there, how they can reserve them, things like that. But aside from that, that's the updates that we have in terms of communications plan, and I will come back at a later time and give you more updates. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you so much, Maggie. Did we have any questions or comments for Maggie? No?
Yeah, I have a quick question.
Sure.
We mentioned a lot of print media.
Mm-hmm,
Have we had any discussions as far as some of the social media targeting and other stuff that way, or even those types of ads?
We did. We did talk about social media a little bit. Haven't really dug too deep into it yet. I wanted to create the web page first and then go from there just to see what the angle we wanted to take, but definitely is on the plan for sure.
Yeah, that's something that we had discussed, Maggie and I, and we will want to collaborate with Liz for the park's social media pages, but that is definitely something that we want to do.
Yeah, definitely a top priority for sure. Great.
Okay.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much, Maggie. All right. Let's go ahead and move on to item B, skateboard park cleanup project.
Share a couple pictures from. We had a good turnout for the event.
Great picture. Great person.
You want to talk?
Yeah, we can. We did. We had a great turnout for the event. What was it? 20, 30 people, I think, showed up. Big. It was a good blend of kids and adults, which I was happy to see. There were people skating while people were working. It was just a good atmosphere. We were able to get all of the non-skatable vertical walls painted. That, for people with non-skating lingo, I don't know if that's the correct terms, but that's all the vertical non-walls that you would put a board on. And we were able to get the rails painted as well. Had some good community input, and the goal of the before and after of those rails, the goal was to be able to look back and feel a sense of accomplishment of that we did something to help this park out. And you can see all the blank canvases there that have more or less been graffiti-less. I was out last week, but we got a little graffiti sometime last week. I want to talk to you about that, Stefania. But yeah, for the most part, everything's held off. We still need to do another paint, another touch-up, another reapplication of the vertical walls, but successful first day, first cleanup project. Last week we were actually able to get the drain fixed up, so that is now skatable and everything's good to go. So first iteration of the cleanup day, I thought it went very, very well.
We want to talk about next phase.
Next phase is going to be, we got to have a discussion of how we want to graffiti the ramps and everything like that, whether we want to sandblast or use the anti-graffiti remover. And then the next goal is to figure out the best skating paint. We've got skate paint ordered through Jessica and the Youth Coalition. So we've got really the next iteration of paint and supplies purchased. We've been discussing possible spring to do another cleanup project. The next goal is for the ramps and all the skatable surfaces. Then Brian and I had a little discussion with Garrett from G's Skate Shop just about how to reconfigure, how to make the skate park work better for skaters. It sounds like there are 2 dead-end corners where you can't really keep your speed. So that is something that we'll look forward to in 2027 whenever we have the CIP, the capital improvement project, to go and take a look at that, fix that up.
Yeah, and I would anticipate that next year we'll work with the Parks Committee to refine that project a little bit. We did a full walkthrough. Garrett looked at not only what areas needed to be repaired, but like Brandon said, there were about, I think, 6 areas that we'd like to maybe put in new features. And then we're planning to do a resurfacing of the park during that project as well. So effectively, we have a nice new shiny skate park after this project. It'll probably expand and balloon a bit. We'll go after some grants and try and earmark some REIT funding for that project. So what's currently in the CIP is probably going to grow, but we'll also have kind of, I think, a better idea of where we are with the recreation center. Feasibility study should be hopefully done by then. So better idea about locations, and I'll go towards that discussion as well. Any questions about the skate park or comments about the future of the skate park, what you'd like to see there, things that you think you want us to work on?
So is Garrett going to help with the design of it, since he has a good right, is that his name, Garrett? Can we bring him in to help with the design of it, so that if he
Yeah.
says that there's like 2 dead ends, shouldn't he kind of be a part to help see what the flow would be, or the best flow?
Yeah, and we actually already did that during this. We walked through, talked about options of features, what those would look like, where would they be, height and dimensions and everything. So we have a pretty good, okay, this is what we want, exactly what we want to add. And we also talked about some of the transitions, smoothing those out, making some corrections of things that probably weren't installed how they should have been, just to make it safer and just more easy and fun for the kids.
What do you anticipate in regard to graffiti and, its recurrence and kind of the willingness to keep painting over it or getting rid of it, or
I anticipate it to continue to recur.
And so then will we continue to paint over it?
I think the intent of the art commission is to do kind of a street art project and pre-graffiti it, and it's something that's not just obscene tagging and profanity and just whatever. We noticed that there seems to be less graffiti on those areas that already have street art on it. So yeah, that might help with it, but the graffiti is not going to go away. At one point, it would be great to have some cameras out there. The more you have a space activated, the less that kind of nefarious activity happens, when people aren't looking. So, if we can do some programming, like skateboard classes, do some events, a skate park competition, maybe a couple times a year, beautify the park, put in some pretty impressive street art. That'll all go a long ways to just not only activating and beautifying it, just making it a place that hopefully kids respect a little more. Right? It's that clean bathroom, nice building with less broken windows. People just inherently kind of respect things a little nicer.
I have a comment. So one of the other things that was really beautiful as far as beautification to the skate park was the conversations that were had while we were there. There was the presence of Big Brothers Big Sisters, Youth Coalition, Juvenile Court Family Services, even a company by Jeff Tremaine called Trinity Mountain Drone was out there droning for free just to kind of get some before and after and some community collaborations. But how Brian was talking about programming, we were getting feedback from the skaters the whole time. So when we first started, it was, we're just going to paint over it. And then as we reached out to skaters that have been here, along with Garrett, but skaters that have been here for years upon years to bring their families there, they were telling us, you probably want to try this way, because we didn't really know, how to go about it. And then when we were at the cleanup, we even announced a few times, if you see us doing something that you're like, what are you doing? You have full authority to say that to us and go, hey, I think this might be better this way or that way. So we were very open to feedback from the skaters day of cleanup, prior to cleanup, and even moving forward, how things are going to look. And the conversations, that's how we came up with some of the programming where they want to do this, they want to do that. And it was a fantastic turnout. It was very positive. The vibe was just, it was just a dope vibe, like a very nice vibe. And, I just lost my train of thought. It was a dope vibe. And then street artists, graffiti, juvenile court family services, with city's permission, of course, is able to go clean up, tagging as it kind of comes along. And we actually had a street artist come to the facility to do a piece for the kids in the facility. So we're working on that. So a lot of good things came out of it. So thank you. Appreciate you guys.
All right, did we have any other comments or questions on that topic? Okay, I'm not seeing anything. Thank you, Stefania, for kind of spearheading this project and being such a support. It's great. All right, let's go ahead and move on to item C, which is subcommittee updates. Who wants to go first?
We can go first, I guess, for the facilities committee. We've sort of turned that time for the last gathering into talking a little bit about everything that's going on in regards to, what's it called? Feasibility study. Wow. See, some impactful, very impactful meeting. Yeah, it wasn't quite a dope vibe though, Stefania. But it was great, actually, that we had a good group of people to get together and begin talking and having some of the conversation about what it might look like, what's kind of expected, I think, and where we're going. Again, at the early stages of bringing that group together. So it was a good time of just beginning that process and working together, and I think very positive for how that will move forward, and a nice blend of voices in that group as well. So we don't have anything to update as far as facilities wise, but just wanted to let you know that that's how we're using that time right now, because it's very impactful on how facilities will go forward, and we thought prioritizing that work right now over and above some of the stuff that we were waiting on with facilities like pickleball, like, Freedom Park, all that stuff's in the works right now. And a lot of it is sort of, hurry up and wait. We can bring in this other work at the same time in that same time slot, not add an extra meeting, and get some forward progress on the feasibility study. And it was a convenient time to bring in people from outside our normal meeting group together. So I don't know if you have anything else you want to add, Tom?
Now, the Arts Commission was represented, and if I'm not mistaken, I think the decision was made by them that they would separate from this project. Is that correct?
Yeah, it wasn't the Arts Commission. We had a member of the Arts Foundation. They're not a city organization. They're a separate entity, but they had requested from the city $30,000 of the funding to do a art center feasibility study as well. I think the mayor, someone from city administration, touched base with Dave Paul on it, and he seemed amicable to doing that. We got the full $200,000 ask. It's unlikely that the feasibility study will be the full $200,000. We put in every bell and whistle we can into this study, so it's quite likely that we'll have a little bit of extra funding. So that the conversation really was around if we can separate this out for a separate study for the Art Center, which we don't know that for sure. We have to get that okay from the state. Do we do it as a separate study, or do we just include it in with the Recreation Center feasibility study, maybe either as an add-on to that facility? A lot of recreation centers will have a community space, a lot of times with a cultural hall, multi-purpose room that has a stage for performances, for arts programming, things like that. But is that what we're talking about, or is it really a performing arts hall, which probably would be separate? And maybe we have both of those things for different types of activity and events and programming. But So right now, we're just kind of an information gathering stage around what's possible, and the committee had some discussion about whether to include it or have it separate.
Okay, any other questions about that subcommittee? Okay, so, let's see, September 25th, Parks and Playgrounds Subcommittee meeting. First of all, we talked about the food forest cleanup. Brandon, you might be able to give a little bit more detail on that, but there was a cleanup. There wasn't a lot of volunteer representation, but they were able to get it about 70% cleaned up, as far as my notes say from Brandon. And then beyond that, we talked about the inclusive playground. We unfortunately did not get the grant that we had applied for, so we're kind of brainstorming other ideas going forward for funding, including fundraising and other grants that we're seeking out. So that's kind of where that one is. I don't know if anyone has any questions about that meeting. Otherwise, I'll go to the next subcommittee. For our programs and events subcommittee meeting, we had gotten a program proposal for a Halloween 5K to benefit North Whidbey Help House, which we liked the idea a lot, but it's too close to do it this year, so that's something that Liz is going to be kind of working on for next year, I think. And let's see here. We talked about the skate park cleanup. That's all I can remember. Is there anything else that I'm missing? Okay.
Talked a little bit about fee schedule, special events.
Okay, yeah. And then Liz had applied for a grant through the city, and I'm drawing a blank on. Thank you. So we have an application in for an LTAC grant for the 3 events: the Mermaids and Pirates, the Fall Festival, and a spring event as well. So we don't know about the results of that yet, but we will this week, I think. So. Yeah. So that's all I got for that one, unless there's any questions. All right, so then we'll go ahead and move on to item D, which is Parks and Recreation Director updates.
Did you want to go, you have to remind me when we're coming back around to the park configuration.
We can do that first, if that makes more sense.
Yeah, let's hit on that since it kind of goes in line with this. I'll just show this. Okay, so first, the Angel of Creativity was installed last week. They did the welding. We had a ribbon cutting event on Thursday night at 5 o'clock. It was well attended. Very nice event. We had an activity where families could come and write a little note that would be encased in the base of the angel statue. Of hopes for the future. There are hopes for the community, love letters, all kinds of things people wrote. And so that's put into the base cap. The statue is actually quite a bit lower than the flagstaff, which was interesting. The location, okay, you can see that there. The location is just within this area here for the roundabout. Obviously not ideal for the layout of the park, so that necessitates kind of a reconfiguration, and we have a few options to do that. One of them here is what we call option one. Let me make sure. Okay, so this one removes the asphalt all the way around the roundabout, which is about approximately 7,800 square feet, about 3 inches deep. Remove the 6-inch of subbase and haul that off. And we would fill the rest of it with topsoil and seed that all in. The landscape bed here would be reconfigured around the new spots. We do have a Gary oak tree here. It's an adolescent tree, so we'll have to look at whether that's just removed or we move it or what we end up doing with that. Irrigation would be reconfigured around the area. The Navy flag staff. So a couple different thoughts on here. We took this to council. Beth Munns had proposed a rededication of the flag and a move of the flag over to the Veterans Memorial Park. I've had a couple of city councilors that are a little hesitant to do that so close to the installation of the angel statue and just the optics around that. But we do want to keep it in a place that honors both the intent and the gift from the Navy. So we have a couple options there. We can just leave it as is. It's perfectly fine with its proximity to the angel statue, I feel. The Art Commission has thoughts, council has thoughts, everyone has an opinion about it. We can leave it as is. We can relocate it kind of to the front of the park, or do the original intent, which is tentatively still what's planned, to move it over to Veterans Memorial Park. The issue we have with it is that it's kind of a sister flag, very similar, it's identical to the flag staff that's in front of the Navy's administration building. However, they chopped the bottom of it because it has, I believe, some kind of flared anchor points onto it, and the Navy cut that off before they installed it into their base. I don't think that was done with this flag staff. When we went to pull it, something has it locked in, even though it's movable. So in order to pull it, which we probably want to do eventually, it needs to be refurbished. And we want to do that, make it look nice. We can go up and just paint over it, but really we need to refurbish it. We can't pull this flag without destroying the base, and we want to be very sure about what can be done and how do we do that without damaging the flag staff. Do we do what the Navy did and just chop part of the bottom of it and make it a little easier to anchor in? What do we end up doing with that? So we've been working on this for about 2 months now, working with Brian Tiehouse with the Navy on the schematics of the flag. We don't have any as-builts for when this was put in. We've been trying to talk with some of the staff that was around during that time to understand better what the conditions of this are. We don't have a lot of information on that, and the Navy doesn't either. So that's delayed the process. We tried to, like I said, try to pull it. 5,000 pounds of pressure wouldn't take it up. We realized we're not going to be able to move this without breaking the existing base. So we want to be sure that we're not going to install it back in the original base after it's refurbished before we do that. With only about 3 weeks until Veterans Day, which is what we were proposing to do the rededication during, it was getting a little too close for comfort. There's no rush on this. So I talked with Beth about possibility of, let's push this back to next year. This location, the flag was installed on Armed Forces Day, right? Armed Forces Day. And so we thought, well, maybe instead of waiting a whole nother year till Veterans Day, we can do it on Armed Forces Day, Military Appreciation Picket, kind of nicer weather, something around there. So that's a little bit of a discussion. Love to hear your thoughts on this. But this is basically option one. remove the roundabout here and locate the flagstaff within the park. Option 2, very similar, remove the roundabout, relocate the flagstaff within the park. So, yeah, we still have the flagstaff. Whether if we locate the Navy flagstaff at the Veterans Memorial Park, which I think is a really good location for it, considering the intent of the park and the Navy's gift, matches really well. We would still have a flag within the park, and so that would be located here. We'd probably take the aluminum flag that's currently at Veterans Memorial and put it here at the head of the park. This option, very similar, removes the roundabout, puts in irrigation, seeds it. We widen out this path, which would require probably a removal of a tree just to connect it in. This gives us a little more of an entry point for the crane for the hydros. This path also has been needing to kind of be improved for a little while. What's it? Yeah, which would require a shoreline permit. That's option 4. Option 3, we keep this driveway but shorten it. We take out a portion of it. Really, the west side of it is pretty beat up and quite potholed. Already, we put in a couple of bollards and keep this as an ADA pathway down to the shoreline path. Can also serve as the access point for the hydros crane. The rest of the roundabout gets removed and seated in, and that flag is relocated. I think in most of these scenarios, we relocate the flag just to give us more of that green field space and make the park a little more usable. But whether we keep that within the park or move to Veterans Memorial or what that looks like, I think in most cases we're still looking at a moving of that flag. Option 4 is very little change, other than the removal of the flag. This keeps the roundabout and looks for a way to just get cars around that. We have about 10 feet of space between the corner of the cement and the corner of the driveway there. We could put in some bollards there, bright yellow, or even maybe add a little bit of asphalt just to bring it around a little bit and kind of reshape this. So it kind of keeps a similar configuration, makes it sort of an awkward location with the statue there, but that's the least disruptive, I guess, to the park. Doesn't really reconfigure it or give us more green space, but those are kind of the options we're looking at. Would love to open it up for comment. I know it's the first time you're looking at it, but basically it really comes down to the flagstaff. Is that moved? Where is it relocated to? Veterans Memorial or within the park? The removal of the roundabout. Do we remove the roundabout in its entirety? Do we remove it partially and keep a pathway, or do we leave it? And that's really the options there. Thoughts, comments, feedback, questions?
The flagstaff. So the request is to move this flagstaff to Veterans Memorial Park, then move the one that's currently in Veterans Memorial Park to Flintstone?
Yeah, probably eventually. I mean, we have several flags around the area, but
Well-
I think people like the idea of having a flag in each park.
No, I agree. I just am wondering why we would do that extra step of flip-flopping them instead of just moving this one within the park.
Yeah, mostly because of what the flagstaff is. It's a naval gift. It has a plaque which we would recreate with the rededication of honoring the partnership between the Navy and the city for all the, and it talks about in the plaque, honoring all those who have served in the military. And so Veterans Memorial Park seems just to be a very appropriate location for
Yeah.
something like that, right?
How long has this been in Flintstone Park?
About 31 years. I think 1991 was when it was.
I guess it just seems like an unnecessary step to switch them in terms of cost and effort and everything, rather than just moving it to another location within Flintstone Park, because it's been there for 30 years.
Well, the cost is the same either way, because basically we're going to build one new base.
Mhm.
So whether it gets moved into the new base or they can move into the new base, moving the current aluminum one over to Flintstone is not really much of a cost for that.
Okay.
There's not really anything special as far as the location of Flintstone Park. It's just where the city selected to display this.
And when it was gifted, we didn't have Veterans Memorial Park
Right,
at that
yeah,
time,
Veterans
so
Memorial was
my
put
guess
in
is that's
after.
where they would have put it in the first place.
You said kind of anecdotally or offhand that people want a Flagstaff in Flintstone. Who are these people and why? And do we have, how much data do we have on that? It seems, I like the logic behind moving the Flagstaff to Veterans Memorial. That seems to fit. It seems to tie in. That makes sense to me. What doesn't make sense to me is just grabbing another Flagstaff and bringing it back down to the park. So I'm trying to understand the demand for that. And is that really essential? I mean, we have lots of Flagstaffs. People aren't going to forget America in this town. I just wonder if we're talking about transforming the park, if that's a necessary element. Now, don't hear what I'm not saying. I like the flag. I like my country. I just also like having a good answer to putting something in a park, and I'm not sure I have one for that. So if you could inform me or help me understand, that'd be great.
I think the honest answer is optics, if I'm reading between the lines. Optics, just because of the sculpture. I'll just leave it at that.
So do we have a good answer? No, I'm just.
Yeah, and that's also an option.
No, I know. I'm just joking.
Well, and I'm
It's an option
even,
not to have one here. not to-
and I'm even looking at it this way, moving, rededicating the Flagstaff that's there at Flintstone Park at the Veterans Memorial, and, taking the aluminum Flagstaff and moving it to Flintstone Park. But also there's a lot of events that happen there. We can fly the Hydro Heroes flag. If the chamber is doing something, they can fly the chamber flag. They can, to let people know, like, this park is used and we have events here.
Yeah, those are good comments, and I didn't consider that. My personal opinion is we probably don't need a Flagstaff there. There's one just 100 yards away, I don't know how far away, in Windjammer. But if we need one, I definitely think it needs to be moved. I don't think its current location is good at all. So that's one comment. I think as far as the roundabout or any part of the roundabout remaining, I think if there's a real functional use for that, okay. If there's not a real defined functional use for it, I don't see a need for it. I think improving the walkway that you had mentioned coming in off of Bay Shore is a good idea, and if you could bring that up to the standard of the new park walkways, it would improve appearance and functionality. And then my other question is there funding for all of this, part of this, to take place?
Yeah, we have about $13,000 for it. I have no cost estimates yet on anything. We're going to do most of the work in-house. Right now, we're just trying to get nailed down what's the direction we really want to go with this, and then we'll get some engineering estimates. There'll probably be, depending on what we do, we might have some permitting requirements for it.
If I'm looking at it correctly, is option 4 the only option that keeps the parking spaces that overlook the water?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah, all the rest remove that.
Because I guess I can recognize that as something that people use, that I see people park there a lot. Would it be possible to make the roundabout, instead of going around that, without drawing it on a map, I don't know, could we make the roundabout almost thinner and like make the road going out through the path where the Flagstaff currently is? I don't know if that makes sense, how I'm describing that. Instead of going around the statue, could you go kind of like more of a U-turn out? Do you know what I'm saying?
Back this way.
Or even just moving back out.
So the original plan was to cut off the roundabout right here in front of the statue, have some bollards here, remove all the asphalt around here, and widen this entry point. So people would come in, park, and then just pull out and re-exit the way they came. We got some pushback from development services on doing that. I think when there's a reason it's a roundabout. I think there was a lot of concern from these condos about headlights or people, coming back this way. Different thoughts on that. The park's open during park hours, right? So there's not a whole lot of traffic at nighttime
Yeah.
coming back that way. But we were encouraged to look at a different solution than having them pull back out this direction. But that is an option.
Yeah, I guess what I'm saying is just instead of, because option 4, it looks to me like the roundabout is squeezing cars between the sculpture and the
Yes.
shoreline.
Yeah.
Instead of that, could we make it go, the road going back out between the sculpture and the opposite side of the shoreline? This is a terrible, I'm sorry.
Like this way?
Yeah, that's what I'm trying to say, sorry.
Yeah, that's also an option. It keeps asphalt here. If with the removal of the flag from this location, that's definitely doable.
Okay, that's all I had to say about that.
Gives us a little
Sorry.
more green space over here, and then but it kind of keeps
That way you keep the parking and you keep the roundabout so the people in the condos aren't bothered. And then, I don't know, it just seems weird to squeeze the cars through that little space between the shoreline and
Right,
and the statue. That's all.
Maybe this is, I don't know. I guess what I'm saying is I like a little bits of all of these, and I don't like bits of all these. I don't like removing those 2 trees. First off, that's secondary. I really feel like when we discuss how we're using this park, we're sort of torn in visions, because on one hand we talk about a green space which sort of lends itself to pedestrians, but then we have a lot of concern about what are we going to do for bringing in vehicles, equipment for some of these other special events that we're really interested in and we really want to stand behind. I mean, even to the point of talking about, Flagstaffs and some really good information from Shane, I think. It feels to me like this park wants to be 2 things. And we actually need to take our imagination maybe away from the roundabout, but think more in terms of a split green and plaza or a split green and pavement, and not necessarily bring cars down in there and park. I mean, there's 5 parking spots. People are going to be upset that they can't park their 5 cars there. I get you. We live on an island. I parked there with my kids before, or whatever. Yeah, will it be a loss? I can find another place to park. I think if we're looking forward, maybe having a plaza that goes from the statue out to where that parking used to be, and then having the other stuff be green space as well. We can have enough space then to bring in equipment, food trucks, vendors, the cars that we brought in for some of that, I don't know what they had, car show and wine and stuff down there or whatever that was not too long ago. So, and then we can still retain some of the green, retain those trees for some shade along the walkway. I mean, even maybe think about another planting or 2 for some more shade down there. I don't know. But I feel like that makes a little bit more sense and encapsulates both usages. We also then can cap that irrigation. We don't have to worry about that. It's not more, I don't know, it's not more weird stuff to mow. We can kind of shape that nicely. We can worry about then developing that path as the path that it is without having to take down trees. It will give us some ADA wide enough way for people to go out then down the old driveway, even if we have some bollards there, but they'll be able to get through, but vehicles won't unless we remove them for special access. I don't see that on any of the drawings, but I feel like in my mind that seems to fit a lot better with how we intend to use the park and what special events go there and what special events could go there. And we avoid the thing of not getting our irrigation right like we have in other parks, and we can put a plaza down which can actually handle some heavier loads for those vehicles, and it's mixed use. And when we're not using it, I mean, it's possible we can put things in there, you know, we're not using it for special events, that we can put in the kinds of things, seating or otherwise, that is mobile enough but still permanent enough to be there, that can be either used, utilized, or moved out of the way for special events, and provide people the chance to sit, but be by the water without sitting in their vehicles idling by the water. And we move forward with a new vision.
I'm not sure special events should be a consideration for this park. I know we have the hydros currently, but it's small, it's serene, it's quiet, and I think, you know, it has benefit and value that way, right off the water. So I would personally not get too hung up on developing the park around special events. We have Windjammer, which has a lot of concrete space, a lot of parking, well, a fair amount of parking. That can handle those kinds of things. So anyways, just John.
I think those reasons are actually why it is good for smaller special events. You run a special event that you can't get numbers to, which is a lot of special events that we have here, because we haven't had a great history of those yet, albeit a few of those, and even some of the ones that have had a long history, we're now rebranding because they're fading. It allows for some intimacy. It allows for a place on the water. You get to see the mountains. You get to see the harbor. You get to see, you know, some of the history of the seaplane base. And certain times you can watch boats come in and out. Eventually, when we get improvements down there, you know, we might see more boats coming in and using that dock. So I think it offers something as a smaller venue, that you put a not well populated event in a place like Windjammer, and now it's, you know, having coffee in a stadium. That's not, it's going to detract from the event, and we have something that we can actually use for a different size, and maybe it's even revenue generating because of that. That we can put events there and draw fees from that will fit the type of crowd that could be drawn for one of these, you know, not massive events. And we could do it in such a way that would be tasteful.
Do we have other park spaces, though, that would be more suitable to that type of event, that smaller type of event? Like if we're going to reconfigure Hal O'Malley Park or even Catalina Park?
Catalina Park's the only one that's also on the water. So that would be, that's the interesting thing about Flintstone, is that it's on the water, and it's not a pocket park, but it's also not, you know, one of our very large acreage parks, and it's on the water. I mean, Catalina still has a long way to go. There's some really cool ideas for it, but it is a lot more tucked in a hidden way. And if you want to market something, it's going to be just a little more challenging, just where its location is. And it's frankly not as pretty. I mean, you pull in there and you got barbed wire on one side and, you know, a bunch of other stuff. And yeah, you've got the yacht club there. And once it gets done, I'm optimistic that Catalina Park could be really cool. But it's a long ways away from being there, as opposed to this is already there. We have an opportunity for improvements that take it in my mind, take it to the next level. Again, it's not on the drawings, and, you know, Development Services probably hates me for even bringing this up, but there it is. I don't know. I'm just trying to make sense of these four things and then kind of what I envision. And again, I could be wrong. Please sort me out. I'm only arguing for the idea, not because I think it's necessarily the right idea, but because I'd rather travel it to its end and find out how wrong I am and a better idea come up. Unless I'm right.
Is the thought to expand the parking off of Bayshore there? I mean, I think there's only 2 or 3 spaces now.
Are you talking about right here?
Or, yes.
Yeah, so there's, 5?
Yeah, there's like 4 out there. I think we can get 2 or 3 more on, it would be an extension, yes.
Yeah.
It would be an extension. approximately 2 or 3 spots. There's not a ton of space we're not gonna get 14 extra ones, but we can, utilizing up to the existing landscape bed, I think we can extend that out another 2 to 3 parking
Yeah,
spaces.
I think that would be worthwhile.
I also like the idea of closing it off above the A and under the little arrow right before the statue and making it kind of a turnaround. You can still park right there and kind of view out. Although it may put light into the condos, but I think that would probably be a really good idea as well, because then you can have extra parking there. You can still pull trucks up there for events if you have to unload for events, and you'll have plenty of grass space still.
So widen out this entry point for two-way and then keep this as is.
Yeah, I think that would be, then it would still offer the option of sitting in your car eating a cheeseburger because you don't want to talk to anybody and viewing the water. It's the only concern is that the folks in the condos will have lights, which is their concern, not.
So I guess, again, funding, what is this gonna cost, and do we have the funding for it? Or are we trying to bite off more than we can chew right now?
Kind of depends on what we end up doing. Like I said, we'll get a cost estimate together once we know which plan we want to go with. So what was proposed when Beth and I presented the refurbishing and rededication of the Naval Flagstaff at Veterans Memorial, we presented them with briefly on the reconfiguration park, basically this option A, that this would be removed, moved out, and the roundabout would be removed with some expanding this parking to add a few more stalls in there. And they all gave their head nod on that. We haven't taken back for any kind of like formal motion. So what we'll probably do is take your comments and things we heard in this commission meeting and work with the Parks Playgrounds Committee to refine these options, and then we'll bring it back to you guys for a motion and a recommendation for council, and we'll just run it by council one more time with the actual cost at that point of, hey, this is how we're going to reconfigure the park, this is the cost, this is how we'll fund it, and expected timeline and all that, and then just get their formal approval on it.
Okay. Are there any further? Okay, go ahead, Tom.
First of all, I think Eric's comment that what do we want it to be should be asked a lot on a lot of things that we do. What do we want it to be? And that should drive a lot of these decisions. Secondly, would it be dead in the water to suggest a name change for this park? I mean, I looked into the history of it a little bit, just a little bit. And apparently when they were building Bayshore, they were looking for fill. And so people were bringing dirt and metal and all kinds of things. I've read this in an article. And so it was very rough, and somebody just made an off-the-cuff comment that it looks like Flintstone Highway. And so that, I guess, worked into Flintstone Park. And of course, the only real attraction that makes it Flintstone Park is the car. The other thing is, this was a sitcom from 1960 to 1966. I'm not even sure if the generations after me even know what the Flintstones are. And the other thing is that we now have a very dominant structure there in the Angel. And so I think if we wanted to look at that possibility, now would be the time. And maybe it's more appropriate to call it Angel Park or something else as opposed to Flintstone Park. Anytime you're going to change the name of a park, as many of you know, probably Brian more than anybody else, it's going to be a struggle, and there's going to be, different opinions. But anyway, I just thought I'd throw the idea out there.
Yeah.
As long as we don't get rid of the car, because I actually heard people at the Angel ribbon cutting
Yeah.
talking about that, and
Well, we could make it Flintstone Corner or something.
This is the naming policy for parks, which we follow in the naming and what we used in the naming of Explorer Park and Freedom Park. Names for public parks based on the site's relationship to the neighborhood, geographic or common usage identification sometimes, Things like Flintstone, there's a Flintstone car art piece, so Flintstone Park. Natural or geological features, a historical figure, place, event, or other instance of historical or cultural significance, an individual living or deceased who has made a significant land or monetary contribution to the park system, or has had the contribution made in memorandum. Smith Park is one of those. Ruth Cohen Memorial Park, another example of that. Individual has contributed outstanding civic service to the living or deceased. It does state in here in 4, a name once adopted should be bestowed with the intention that it will be permanent, and changes should be strongly resisted. Name changes shall be subject to the procedures here within. Timing is important in naming facilities since temporary designations tend to be retained. In the development of facilities, a number of designations shall be used until the formal naming of the facility. Harbor Heights, example of that. Section 3, a park's interior features and or facilities may have names other than that of the entire park. These names are subject to criteria designation, section 1 above, and selection of that process outlined in section 2. And so it does talk about, if there's a major renovation of a park, that might be an appropriate time for a renaming if we feel like that is appropriate. It's something that can be considered. We try to resist renaming things. We don't want to undo, there was usually an intent, especially if it's something historically significant, right, to the cultural history of the city. Something we can talk about, thoughts, but definitely would be make sure that it really makes sense, and probably for an established name park, whereas the last 2 we renamed, one was Wellsite 10, it was just a designation of a place. Harbor Heights, recently purchased, that was the name of the business park, so that's what we referred to it. Hadn't really had an established name yet, or even public use of that space yet. For a place where people might have a nostalgic connection to that, we want to be careful in how we proceed. But always open for conversation. And we do get requests every once in a while, especially some of the neighborhood parks, HOAs, that want to rename it to something that's a little more significant. Memorial type parks, they tend to feel are a little dry and not necessarily inviting, like a Ruth Cohen Memorial.
Okay. Any other comments or questions on that topic? Okay. So you don't need a motion or anything right now?
Not at this point,
Okay.
especially just your first look at it, right? So
Yeah.
we'll send these documents to you. Chew on it. We'll probably send an email out just asking for any further comments or feedback for the Parks Committee. And then we'll work with them, like I said, to revise these and maybe redo the drawings and the layout. Brandon did a great job of putting in detail what each option would entail. So we'll send that out as well. And then we'll bring that back to you once you've had some time to think about it and we've refined it a little bit for motion at that time.
Okay, great. So then we'll go ahead and move on to Parks and Rec Director updates.
All right, so we've had some discussions around the Freedom Park entry points in preparation for the design of the trail system. We will have a site visit in December with our trail planner. We'll invite the committee to be a part of that and then bring that draft design to you guys to have a look at. We did talk with engineering and development services about what would be required and needed and what's possible as far as trailheads and what that might look like. So that's something that we're actively working on. We did receive notice from RCO about the preliminary rankings for the grants, the LWCF, WWRP, and the YAF. So that's the Landmark Conservation Fund, which was for the playground. We did not make the cut on that. We are going to go ahead, we'll have a discussion with finance about using a portion of those funds that are out of the Windjammer Park funds for the design. The biggest feedback we got from those grant evaluations was they would like to see the projects a little more shovel-ready. We scored very high, especially in like public engagement and pretty much all areas of the grant. Where we scored low was in the project scope and project fit categories, specifically around, you know, how far along are you with it and ready to go. So we'd like to go ahead and move forward with doing the permitting, doing the design. If it's possible, we'll try and get an agreement with a provider that would also do the implementation once we have the funding, and just continue on or roll over that agreement into implementation, so we don't have to go back out and have a different provider work with someone else's design. But that's the intent. So that we'll go ahead and move forward and have it shovel ready for additional funding. We will keep looking at grants because the WWRP, which was for the ball fields, and the YAF, which was for pickleball courts, we didn't receive those. The WWRP, we're going to call the ball fields done for right now. We already did a pretty good large infield project there. We're going to shift our focus a little more towards the softball fields and some of the other athletic fields. The pickleball courts tomorrow should be the notice date. It still says tentative on the website, but we should get notice if we receive the community outdoor athletic facilities grant. That would fund half of the pickleball courts. If we receive that, since we applied for two to basically be the match for each other, since we did not receive one, if we do get the other one, we'll probably go to council, and since we didn't receive the other grants, we had some funding earmarked out of REIT to be the match for those, and we would just ask them to redirect that match funding for the pickleball courts. I think we'll also start doing fundraising with the Pickleball Association to do some donations as well for that. So I'd like to keep that project moving forward, and hopefully we'll get that grant. If not, kind of similar to the playground, we'll finish out the design, and then we'll start on fundraising, and we'll look at additional grants we can go after. Let's see, we are releasing an addendum for the forestry management plan, request for proposals. We had a number of questions from some of the firms, and Brandon put together an answer list for that. We'll get those, let's see, that closes probably in a couple of weeks, pretty soon. Yeah, next week or so. So we'll get those proposals and negotiate a contract for a provider to start that work. One of the projects that Brandon and his team are working on right now out of the grant funding that we received is a trail system, a little loop trail around Coochie Park. And we have an agreement that is getting signed now for that work. I mentioned Angels of Creativity was installed. That was 4 or 5 years, several public hearings, multiple locations, working with eccentric artists, measurements. It was quite a project. We didn't get involved until the very, very end at the installation portion, after location had already been selected and all that. So now we're kind of left with having to work around the reconfiguration around where that was selected. But it's good to have it in. It's quite definitely a attraction piece. If you haven't gone down and taken a look at it, do so. Good art solicits a lot of strong feelings. So if that's the definition, then this is a good art piece. Let's see, talk about pickleball and playgrounds. Brandon just completed trail improvements over at Fred Marsh. We had a number of subsidences that were retaining water when it got wet. That has all been taken care of now with good water shedding flow, and added additional gravel into there. So a big thank you to his staff. I know that's something we had gotten quite a few comments about doing. And then we're working on the fee schedule. We have the budget going to council in the October 23rd workshop, and then that will get formalized and approved for adoption in November. So if you have any comments or, actually I don't know if they're taking public comment for the workshop, but if you'd like to take a look at what's being proposed. We had a number of decision packages that were not included in the first preliminary budget that went to council. Most of those were around our recreation programs and the vehicle for recreation. Right now they don't have vehicles, so they're utilizing their personal vehicles for transporting equipment and supplies for programs and events, so we'd like to give them something. And then David Goldman, our finance director, will be going over those operational budgets. The main thing, and the one that I think is just giving council a lot of interest in looking at and understanding the details, is moving recreation, which was senior services, as a sort of a quasi special recreation fund fully into the general fund as a recreation department. That causes some interesting shifts in how we handle revenues and transfers and things like that. And so David did a good job of breaking that out and being able to explain it. So it is not I think it was being shown as like a $780,000 deficiency. There's a story behind all of that. And when you flesh it all out, the actual delta between it, the last budget and this budget is about $30,000 to $50,000. So it's pretty understandable once you understand all the accounting shifting there. Liz, you want to talk a little bit about programs and events?
Yes, so I did want to just start by saying thank you to Eric and bringing out his involvement with Dips Disc in our first ever fall festival. When I was chatting with some of the kids at the fall festival, one kid, I kept asking kids, what's your favorite thing here? What was your favorite thing you did? And they said the disc golf. So we were really glad that we had disc golf outside to participate. We had just under about 200 people attend with their and kids. That was adult and kids, and had a good time. And also Carrie and Brian and Ben Stuckey, the Stuckey family. We loved having them there, and always a pleasure to have Ben at our events as well. And so now we're switching gears into, we're still Halloween. We are partnering with Parent to Parent with Island County Human Services for a Halloween dance that'll be at the center on the 26th. And then we take our bus over to the Oak Harbor Public Schools Trunk or Treat, and we're excited that Vicki had extended that invitation to us. So we'll be there at the high school for the trunk or treat that evening. Then our brains are switching over to our holiday season. We are diving into our Gifts of Connection, kind of our Adopt a Senior program. And we're getting that all ready to go and already starting to put together our wearable art package for next year's event. We'll be putting our call for artists out for the wearable art show. So if anybody is feeling creative and wants to be involved in creating an ensemble for wearable art, kind of get thinking on that now. So those are our upcoming programs or events. And then just to touch base on grants, we've been talking a lot about grants. Yes, we did put in an application for the LTAC funds, which we're excited about that opportunity. We're also working on an application for an RCO grant, No Child Left Inside. It's due at the end of this month, so we're working with Wendy, our grant administrator, on that. And what we're looking to do is build a program around getting children outside, right? That's what this grant is all about. And what we're looking at is calling it the Would Be Outdoor Ready program. And it would start in spring with some evening weekend programs, and then in the summer it would be summer camp style, and then in the fall some family program as well. But really the idea in this Would Be Outdoor Ready is getting kids outside on the water, on the trails, giving them opportunities to do things they otherwise wouldn't, so that they have this comfort level of, okay, I have learned the basics for water safety to go kayaking or paddleboarding. I've learned the basics of the skills I need to have and what I need to pack to be able to go on a hike. You know, just these different areas, and include and work alongside the Sound Water Stewards. So we're building some partnerships with them and with the Washington State Park, so that after kids have participated in this program, you know, if their friend says, hey, do you want to come with my family to go boating or to hiking, it's something they've done, it's something they feel ready to do and engage in again. So that's the application that we're working on right now. That would be in addition to a regular summer camp that we're looking to host as well in the summertime. So those are kind of the larger projects that we're working on. As far as programming, our current programming, we're in this is week 3 of our fall programs. This is the first time that we've utilized some school district property to do some programming. So we've are over at the Oak Harbor Elementary School in their gym for our archery, tag, and our street hockey. And so those are off to a fun start. Definitely, it looks like the programs that have been well attended and getting the signups are trending to our younger ages, like the 6 to the 12. So we're really looking at ways to engage our teens. We know that, you know, there's a lot of need for that, and we've had a lot of asks for that. So we're trying to figure out, okay, what is that? You know, what do we need to do differently to engage our teenage youth? And so whether is it the time of days of the programs that we're doing or the programs themselves, but really what we think is going to be a key to engaging them is creating kind of what we're calling our teen club, getting kind of our main group of youth who come together regularly and can help kind of be our youth advisory board, right? Just getting them together and engaged and leading out on what kind of activities they want to see. And I think once we get that in place, then our teen programs will grow. So yeah, a lot, you know, as soon as we finish one thing, we're already well into the next program and project, but we appreciate everybody's help and support. Especially when I look up at this board, it's awesome to see how involved you've each been in helping our programs and events been successful. So thank you.
Brendan?
Yeah, I just got back from the International Society of Arboriculture, week-long arborist convention in BC. So I was learning about some trees. Don't have a very strong knowledge on that, but it was a very, very interesting, just entire week. We had field days and learning stuff, so it was a chance for me to get a little more knowledge and just be a little more comfortable with the trees. So that was nice. While I was gone, we were able to, I don't know if you guys had seen it, but it took about 3 days to clean kitchens B and C. I'm looking for some before and after pictures because they didn't look that bad until you started cleaning them, and they were pretty dirty. So yeah, we were doing that. We knocked down the weeds down at the field B, and we're able to spray those, so they should be gone. Our seedlings are up and should be taking over that voided space there, so all's going as planned. Football field looks good. We are looking to shut down. All of our irrigation is off, so we're going to be blowing out our irrigation system starting in the next week or two to get ready for winter. So we're winterizing and trying to just keep up with the other projects, Flintstone projects, and everything else we have going on.
We kind of changed up how we did our report for council a few months ago. I think back in July was the first one. We used to do just kind of little bullet point talking points of a few items of note, as well as a few metrics around like facility rentals or marina slip rentals. Back in July, we changed how we did that, and we shared that first report with you, I think in August. And I think there's a request for us to continue to do that. So I just sent an email containing the September, because I'm not sure I shared that with you, I don't remember, September and October reports. So you can go through these. It talks about a summary of our revenues, programs, facility usage, highlights of events, programs and projects that are happening in parks, recreation, as well as the marina in there. And here's the October report. This is the ribbon cutting for the statue. So give those a look over. Let me know if you have any questions. But those are there for your perusal, and those are also included with the council workshop package, I believe.
Okay, thank you. Any questions about any of those items? All right. At that point, then we'll go to item 6, member comments. Does anyone have any comments? Go ahead.
I just have to, when I spoke earlier about the skate park, I left some people out. So I'm sitting here like, oh, shoot. So when I was giving everyone their clout of the presence of who was there, I forgot to mention G's Skate Shop, who was there, of course, and some local skaters, and a huge presence of the Art Commission, which I didn't mention. So I wanted to just set the record straight and make sure that I mentioned them. And there were some juvenile detention officers out there too, which was pretty cool. And the city. So I think I covered all my bases. I'm clear. That's all I wanted to say.
Okay, oh, go ahead.
Councilman Stuckey. As I looked into your eyes, I was like, let me just get this right now.
Okay, any other member comments? All right, seeing none, let's move on to item 7, determination of future agenda items. Did we have anything at this point?
I assume we'll be coming back to the Flintstone Park
Yeah.
question, so probably need to put that in there after 30 days of thought and work on that.
I would think, kind of a summary of the budget once it's approved. That probably won't be the next meeting. It sounds like it'll probably be the December meeting. Just to highlight any changes or initiatives.
I'm gonna just throw out there, we'll probably have some updates to the website either ready to go or, up for discussion for final details, so I'll just throw that on there as well. Any other ideas or thoughts? Okay, are we ready to adjourn? All right, well, seeing no other comments, I will go